That's a very good question. So one of the things that we look at when we think about, looking at the electorate based on demographics, if we extend it to those two levels, ethnicity versus education, the single largest block of Americans still falls within that non-college educated white demographic, which skews heavily Republican. And so let's think about some of that characteristics of that group. One is that they typically skew older, and when they skew older, they have more acute memories of the recessionary and inflationary environments of the 1970s and early 80s. So that's more likely to happen. But there's also a few things at play that we've seen sort of from a broader economic perspective that have affected the lives of many Americans. So for instance, if we look at individual districts, ones that are held by Republicans, ones that are held by Democrats, we see sort of an insight into two very separate economies that are at play across our country. In Democratic-controlled districts, they have the majority of employment in digital and information technology services. About 71% of all employment in the country are held in democratically held districts. Meanwhile, in Republican-held districts, you're looking at a very different economic profile. You're looking at the majority of mining, agriculture, and manufacturing industries. And so the economic realities that many people who might skew more right versus left are heavily dependent on the districts where they live in and sort of what they're seeing in those districts. Another thing to consider is this as well as we approach this is of course, broadly speaking, this is often an urban versus rural divide. It's an often urban versus rural question that is often addressed on both sides of the aisle. And thirdly, and I think that's something that is often more nebulous, is economic data is just economic data. And the way that messaging is conveyed often dictates the way people might see or be sympathetic to voting. So for instance, I can approach the same series of economic data with two facts, which are both accurate. One is that right now the job market is very strong and we're near our all-time low unemployment rate, and our recovery was very strong following the recession. The other thing is that we're experiencing the highest inflation in the last 40 years, including unprecedented levels of increase in the cost of shelter, which is often the single greatest cost for many Americans. And so depending on which element of that message you hear, that becomes something that forms part of that political narrative that dictates how the economy will be in play. And at play, like in any election, those moderate voters are going to be key components as to which part of that economic data becomes most relevant to them. Is it a strong job market? Is it high inflation? Is it a combination of both of those things? And that will be at play in November this year.